Hey, howdy, and a big welcome back to Clemhawks, folks. I'm Yak, ready to take you through, the follow-up to the Shohei Ohtani trade rumor video we did yesterday. This one, an expanded discussion on the Angels. I was ragging on them quite heavily there in that video, discussing just how bad the Angels suck. And friends, I want to just kind of break it down a little bit further for you. So if you're a fan of a little bit of expanded MLB topics, a little bit more thought put into some stuff, please consider over the next few minutes hitting that subscribe button and sticking around with us here on Clemhawks, covering the Minnesota Twins, NASCAR, and Minnesota Wild quite heavily, and then whatever else junk gets thrown in the middle. I guess you could classify this as junk if you want, but sometimes junk is the best stuff to watch on YouTube, so let's get into it. Friends, the Los Angeles Angels have not finished above 500 since 2015. That is facts. That is something that I just looked up and was quite shocked by personally, in the fact that under the whole span tenure of Trout and Ohtani, the Angels have never finished above 500. That is startling, right? Even in the pandemic shortened year, they can't even claim they finished above 500. That is pathetic. And now this is a really, you could probably spend 8 hours of a full podcast, 8 episodes, an hour each length, breaking down just what has led to every single failure at every single turn for the Los Angeles Angels in their whole entire time with Mike Trout in the organization, right? Trout came in playing ball 2011 after being drafted in 2009. Mike Trout has a grand total of 3 career playoff games. And guess what? They didn't win that playoff series, or he'd have more. So, that's a real big problem for the LA Angels. And here's the thing. The caveat to that is Mike Trout had 12 at-bats in the postseason in 2014 and had an 0.83 batting average. So it's not like Mike Trout was the superstar and somehow the Angels still found a way to lose those games. But quite simply put, right, is, the guy has done so much for you over those few years leading up to 14, and he has a downtime, and the Angels, just as they have their entire time before that and after that, failed to pick up the slack outside of one player. And then a few seasons later, you add in Shohei Ohtani to the mix, and it's like, okay, hold up here. We've got a chance to actually do something. And I know probably a big reason why Shohei Ohtani signed with the LA Angels is simply because you had Mike Trout, you had the best player in baseball, you had the best player in Japan joining forces in the MLB on the West Coast, bringing that big market viability to Anaheim and really going out there and getting this job done. And that just has not translated. I know Ohtani's had injuries. I know Trout's had injuries over the past couple years. Everybody in baseball gets injured time to time. It is what it is. But now, in a year where you've got these two pretty much in every single category possible when it comes to your batting categories, and I guess Shohei Ohtani on your pitching categories, every single category batting, other than 2 or 3 out of the major 12 or 15, it's Ohtani 1 or Trout 1, Ohtani 2 or Trout 2, and that's how it stacks up for the entire Angels batting order, and that is absolutely devastating because there's nobody outside of Taylor Walsh, I believe it is, adding anything of value to that. Let me correct that name because I think I really screwed that up right there for you. But, right, I've got a whole bunch of stuff on my computer that I've done research on today just to have an idea that I sound like I know what I'm talking about. But, right, there's one other guy maybe on your roster that sounds like he's doing anything. And sorry, it's Jared Walsh. I messed that up. Taylor Ward and Jared Walsh. That's my apology. But actually, sorry, it is Taylor Ward that's doing it with that 286 batting average, the 380 slugging percentage, all that. Okay, that's covered. So it's Taylor Ward that's the guy that's getting the job done. So, right, is you've got 3 guys in your lineup that are producing anything of substance in terms of plus value at bat. And then pitching, guys, this is the situation for the LA Angels pitching. And yes, you know what? Like I said, I don't want to try and break down the failure of the past 10, 11 years that is the Angels, simply because number one topic is going to be pitching, and I don't think I'd have enough time in my weekend to do the research, to do the coverage, and try and explain why the Angels have not been able to pitch their way out of a wet paper bag the entirety of having Mike Trout in the MLB, right? You have one reliever in SHOHEI OHTANI who has 17 games played this year, 2.16 ERA, and 16.2 innings pitched. He's still got 2 losses, a blow and save, and 4 earned runs against. Other than that, he's been solid. So, right, that's one pitcher that's better than Shohei Ohtani in the ERA department. You got Ohtani, who's started 15 games, has a 2.38 ERA, but is only a 66 or roughly thereabout win percentage at 9 to 4 losses, and he's pitched 87 innings. He has a .99 average against, 123 strikeouts, only 22 walks against. Like, the guy has been mowing down hitters, and then all of a sudden your next closest pitcher to that 238 for Shohei Ohtani is at 293 in Jonathan Diaz, who has just come into the starting games, right? Only 4 games played, 3 games started this year, and he's got a 2.93 ERA. You move up, the next guy is Patrick Sandoval at 3.0. There's a couple guys, 3.0, 3.0, 3.07, none of those guys of which have started games. And then all of a sudden, you all start climbing up 3.38, 3.72, and your next starter that has an ERA worth a dang after Patrick Sandoval is 4.0 Noah Syndergaard. You literally have the Norse god, the Thunder Thor, on the mound for you, and he's pitching a 4.0 ERA, right? This is, I said it 15 seconds ago. You could spend an entire 8-hour episodic podcast trying to explain the failure that has been the Angels pitching under Mike Trout's tenure in the MLB. That said, you also have the failure with, you got Shohei Ohtani, and it's a front office failure. It is a top-down organizational failure. The fact that you can have come over the best player from Japan and join forces with the best player in America and put together a two-headed monster like the MLB has not seen in years, right? Mike Trout, by every metric that matters, is the best player in the MLB. Shohei Ohtani, by every metric that can be possibly created for this guy, is the best player in the MLB, right? Literally, right? Mike Trout is the best position player, but then you define what Shohei Ohtani is as a two-way player, and he is hands down, especially the past 2 seasons, the bar none best player in the MLB, and you've got Trout right there with him, and you cannot fight your way out of a wet paper bag to get out of the 4th place in the AL West. It is pathetic how terrible the Angels are. I don't know, is it run? Is it managed? They play? They fight? Like, what is wrong? Quite honestly. The challenge to you in the comments section, and this is the beautiful part of this video, the challenge to you, as hopefully you've subscribed, but secondary too, is can you at all make one single couple sentence argument that sums up completely how the Angels have managed to only appear in one playoff series in the entirety of Mike Trout's career? Can you somehow figure that out? Because I, for one, cannot, and it is absolutely, the only word I can use for it is embarrassing on part of the Los Angeles Angels. How you can have such a, right, the storied franchise that the Angels are, and have such storied players in Trout and Ohtani, and find at every single turn a way to fail both of the best players in the MLB is absolutely embarrassing. It's incredible incompetency. There are so many adjectives and words and fancy English things that I fail at that you could use to describe how terrible the situation the Angels find themselves in, year out, with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani absolutely is. So as I said, this is a follow-up video to the Shohei Ohtani to the Atlanta Braves trade rumors. If you're still listening, make sure to possibly check that out here on Clem Hawks. This video, much more on the rails. That video, I was really having none of it because that was just ridiculous that's where we are at with Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout at this point because of how incompetent the Angels organization is when it comes to getting to the playoffs with the two best players the MLB have seen in years, decades maybe, and it is absolutely just a failure. Folks, I am Yak. This is Clem Hawks. Thank you for tuning in. I am up on Ota here.